The boom of cannons and rifle fire tore through the night like thunder. The screams of wounded soldiers mingled with the blasts of clashing guns. In the midst of the storm, Union soldiers held their rifles trembling, praying that they would see the morning sun. The ground and grass were soaked red. Far from the battlefield, by candlelight in the White House, Abraham Lincoln sat in silence. He held a letter from a mother who had lost her 5 sons in the war. His heart was breaking, tears welling in her tired, burning eyes. He whispered, "This is the price of freedom." The war was no longer about politics or policy. It was about his beloved family, sons, fathers, and brothers who would never come home. Lincoln folded the letter gently, clasped his hands together, and prayed. "Let my life bear their burden. Let this nation live." Abraham Lincoln was born in a small log cabin in the bitter cold of winter. His mother, Nancy, held him in her arms, warm and loving. His father, Thomas, was a simple man, strict, stern, but honest. No silver spoon. No grand inheritance. Just the hard ground beneath his feet and dreams bigger than the Kentucky sky. By the time he was 9, Abraham had already felt loss. His mother had died of an illness. He carved words into wood for her tombstone, not yet able to write poetry, but trying to make sense of the loss. Though he had less than a year of formal education, he was burning with a thirst for knowledge. He walked miles to borrow books, reading them by firelight, etching the words of Shakespeare and the Bible into his soul. His mind became his escape, his weapon. At 19, Abraham stood taller than most, skinny and awkward, with a deep voice like a river flowing over rocks. His beloved sister, Sarah, had died in childbirth, a tragedy that haunted him. But he kept going, working as a rail breaker, a boatman, and a store clerk. In New Salem, Illinois, he was known for his honesty. He would walk miles just to return a customer a few extra pennies. One spring, he took a freight train to New Orleans. There, for the first time, he witnessed a slave auction, human beings being sold like property. Something inside him cracked. But what shook him most was not the sight of people chained and sold but the silence of those who watched. From that day on, the seed of justice grew in his heart. Silently, he vowed, "Someday, if I have the power, I will destroy slavery." Lincoln's path to politics was not smooth. He lost several elections before finally winning a seat in the Illinois legislature. As a lawyer, he was known for his intelligence. He had an unwavering sense of ethics. He once refused to defend a client he knew was guilty. Abraham was known as a lawyer who defended the poor, those without a voice. He traveled from town to town on horseback, carrying a book and a sense of justice in his saddle. In dusty courtrooms, he spoke with a frankness that moved jurors to tears. One day, he defended a young man accused of murder. All the evidence was against him. But Lincoln revealed the truth: the witness had lied. The young man was free. Outside the courtroom, his mother held Lincoln's hand and wept. "You have given me back my son," she whispered. Then came the fires of national division. The issue of slavery tore America apart. Lincoln believed slavery was a moral evil. His famous debate with Stephen Douglas in 1858 rocked the nation. Although he lost the Senate race, his words, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," reverberated across the nation. In 1860, Lincoln, the rail splitter from Illinois, won the presidency. He became the 16th President of the United States. The South saw him as a threat. Even before he was inaugurated, 7 states seceded. On March 4, 1861, as he stood on the steps of the Capitol, snipers watched him from the roof. His inaugural address was firm but pleading, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies." His plea failed. On April 12, 1861, Confederate cannons fired on Fort Sumter. The Civil War had begun. As the cannons roared at Fort Sumter, Lincoln stood alone in his office. The nation was divided. 11 states had seceded. His victory in the election had been the final spark that had ignited the old embers. He had warned the South, the secessionist Confederate states, pleading for unity. But now, the war had begun. Critics called him naive. Newspapers mocked his plain face and country accent. Even his own ministers doubted him. But Lincoln stood, not out of arrogance but out of iron resolve. A house divided against itself cannot stand, he said. Now he would have to rebuild it, with trembling hands and a resolute heart. The war was a nightmare. Lincoln, with no military experience, had to learn strategy in a flash. Early Union defeats crushed the morale of his troops. Then came the bloodshed, Shiloh, where 23,000 men were killed in 2 days, and Antietam, the bloodiest day in American history, with 22,000 killed or wounded. Lincoln paced the halls of the White House, reading telegrams from the battlefield, his face filled with sadness. In the days after the battle, the fields were silent. More than 50,000 were dead or wounded. The air was thick with the scent of blood, smoke, and grief. Lincoln came not for glory, but for mourning. He walked among the graves, spoke to wounded soldiers, comforted mothers searching for their sons. Then he stood at the podium and delivered a speech, not with thunder, but with humility. That government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the face of the earth. Those words have echoed throughout history. But that day, it was for the fallen. Not to inspire, but to heal. In the midst of the chaos, Lincoln took his boldest step. On January 1, 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring slaves in Confederate territory free. It was not just a military strategy, it was a moral crusade. He knew it would further divide the Union. He knew it would cost him an ally. But he also knew what he was doing was right for humanity. The war was now not just about saving the country, it was about freedom. Many called it political suicide. But Lincoln had seen enough suffering. If slavery is not wrong, then nothing is wrong, he wrote. The proclamation did not immediately abolish slavery. But it changed the spirit of the war. And the direction of the nation. As the war raged, Lincoln suffered in silence. His son, Willie, died of an illness at age 11. His wife, Mary, was mired in grief. At night, Lincoln walked the halls of the White House, secretly visiting the room where Willie had played. He sat for hours, arms folded, heart broken. "Do you think I don't suffer?" he told a friend. "If there is a man in more pain than I have never met him." But he did not let the pain destroy him. He bore it, as he bore the hopes of a fractured nation. The war was over. General Lee surrendered to General Grant. The Union was preserved. The dream of freedom had survived. Lincoln walked through Richmond, the former capital of the Confederacy. Freed blacks knelt before him. He said, "Kneel not to me. To God alone may you bow." 5 days later, on April 9, 1865, while laughing at a play, Lincoln was shot in the head by John Wilkes Booth. As Lincoln breathed his last, Secretary Stanton whispered, "He belongs to history now." As word spread, the nation mourned. His funeral procession traveled by train back to Illinois, accompanied by the cries of freed slaves. He was not a flawless man. He had his controversies, just like America. He had his enemies. He was criticized, fought bloody wars. But he stood for something bigger than himself. He fought for unity when others chose division. He stood for freedom when his life was at stake. Today, his name is engraved in stone and in hearts. In every free voice. In every soul who dares to dream in the land he saved. He was born poor. He died a president. But he lives on, as the soul of America. If this video was helpful, like and share it so others can know.